understand that he has an incredible pedigree, and one of the things that's on this list I gave you in terms of his bio that just got added on, right, was the Montgomery County Small Business of the Year, 51 to 100 employees. So just got announced last week, right?
Right.
So in this Montgomery County, not Chamber of Commerce, but Montgomery County.
33,000 small businesses.
Yeah, 33,000 small businesses. So awesome news, right? Smart CEO list of fastest 50 growing companies. Mortgage Executive Magazine's list of top 100 mortgage companies in America, privately held mortgage companies in America, right? Is this
no, they're public too.
Okay, so it was perfect. All right, even better. All right, so Scotsman's Guide, latest list of top 75 lenders in the U.S. and Community Health Charities Champion of the Health Award. You just
Not me personally.
Yeah. So without any further ado, help me welcome Craig, and let's learn a little bit here today. Okay, so Craig and I had been working together actually for a little over a year, and when we talked on Friday, our little green room thing we did, it was actually pretty fascinating because I had never really sat down and talked with you at length about how you got to where you are today, right? So why don't you just take us back now to 1994, right, when you graduated from American University, right. and just take us down the progression of how you got to where you are today.
1994 was one of the worst job markets in 30 years, and I graduated from American University, not with raving colors from there, but I graduated nonetheless, and I was looking for something to do. And I had interviewed around in a number of cities, including this one, and wound up working for American Express for a couple months in their Global Assist area, which is customer service related. And while I was only there 2 months, I actually got a great experience there, helping people abroad who may have gotten arrested and needed lawyers, helping medevac people out of countries, wiring people money who had lost their wallets or were broken down somewhere. This was before cell phones really got kicked in. So it was dealing with a lot of panicky people on the phone in a customer service manner and helping them solve their problems. So I was there just 2 months until a fraternity brother had called me, who had started a mortgage company some years earlier, about 5 years earlier. And he offered me a position there. And I was not really lighting it up where I was at the current place in terms of income, and I saw that there was a great opportunity at his company, and I gave it a shot.
So you didn't spend your entire youth saying, I'm going to go into the mortgage business.
I really didn't even know what a mortgage was at that point. There was minimal subject matter on it in college. We really didn't talk about mortgages a whole lot, and it wasn't a topic that I was remotely interested in.
Right.
But I saw some other people over there doing good, and I took the attitude that if they can do well there, then so can I.
Okay, so take us through that. So you got started at your frat brother's house.
I did.
Right, not house, frat brother's house. That sounded great, wasn't it? At the frat house. So you got to start with your frat brother's company. And so take us down that path. What happened next?
Yeah, I didn't know him that well. It was somebody who had graduated before me, and he had his own firm with a partner. I really enjoyed it. And what I quickly discovered is that while I was an international business and accounting major, I had a wide range of business knowledge from school. And I came from an accounting family, and what I quickly found was that the mortgage business really covered so many other things that I had been exposed to, enjoyed, or may have been good at. It covered accounting, it covered finance, it covered sales, it covered real estate, it covered insurance. So all these different things, all these different classes I had taken really kind of came into play there, and every transaction was different, and I found that very interesting. On top of the sales part, something that's interesting is that my whole life, I've never really had a job that wasn't one where I wrote my own paycheck. I've never had a job with an hourly wage. I was a waiter and a golf caddy before I was in the mortgage business. And those jobs are all functions of you work harder, you get paid more, you get more tips. So when I saw the opportunity in commission-based business and in sales that was there, it was something that was very attractive to me, and I really took to it.
Okay, so take us through that. So you went there in 1994.
1994.
So it was about 6 months after you graduated. You started first with American Express and then moved over to your frat brother's company.
Right.
All right. So take us through that. So you were there for a while, and so how did it get to a few years later you started your own company?
I was there just within 15 months of being there. There were about 15 loan officers in the place, including my business partner. And within about 15 months of being there, he was promoted to another area, and I was promoted to being the sales manager. I essentially convinced my boss to make me the sales manager of an office that didn't have a sales manager. And we were there for a while together, and about 3 years later, our company was acquired by a large Fortune 500 company. And we both had the opportunity, I had the opportunity to stay there and take an additional position and grow with the company. And it was at that point that Eric convinced me that it was best that we move on together and start our own firm.
So it was Eric's idea. It was all you're doing. So should we bring you up here then? Is that the... All right, so...
Eric was definitely the driving force
was he really?
behind that, absolutely, behind that starting.
Okay, wow. All right, so then... all right, so take us through that then. So
from Eric running a large division within that company and me running a large branch within that company, we found ourselves just a month later in a hallway in Greenbelt. This was an orange hallway with bugs, dead bugs, all over the floor. And we had taken new office space, and the office build-out was occurring, was going to take a couple weeks. But while that was going on, they said, well, you can use this space over here. So it was two guys with a shared computer and a shared fax machine sitting between us in an orange hallway with a lot of dead flies, waiting to get the company up and running. So that is our memory of where we came from. And I think that looking back, it was it's very helpful to know that we started from very modest beginnings with the company and built it from there.
And that was in 1998.
That was 1998.
Okay, so keep going. So 1998.
1998, we were in the business prior to this of a direct marketing company. Our previous company had sent out thousands of pieces of direct mail every month and had a very large telemarketing operation. That was the business model that we knew. And that was the business model that we were going to emulate and really improve on. In 1999, the Asian liquidity crisis hit. And a lot of the product that was available in the mortgage market pretty much went away overnight. So a lot of the product that we were offering was gone, and at the same time, a lot of the methods of telemarketing and direct mail had really become oversaturated. You had a direct mail return rate of close to 3% in the mid-90s on mortgages, but by the time we were doing it in 99, 2000, it was down to a fraction of 1%. It was very small. It was not effective anymore, and at that point, we made a decision strategically to change directions. We started to lose some of our loan officers, and we decided not to replace them. And at the same time, we decided to close our own telemarketing department and kind of take to the streets. We joined every organization we could. We went to networking events, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We went to every event we could where we could try to generate our own referral sources. The idea of going consumer direct to us was pretty much over, and we were going to develop relationships with centers of influence where we could add value to their businesses.
So how'd you come up with the idea anyway? So how did you stumble onto the concept that going through centers of influences might be a stronger route for what we're trying to do?
We kind of stumbled on it just by generating one or two of those, inadvertently, realizing that a good financial advisor, a good realtor, a good CPA could actually turn out to be a much better source of business than spending thousands of dollars every month on consumer direct advertising. Right. And by spending our time and energy developing those relationships, we wouldn't just be generating one customer, but we'd be generating a stream of referrals for a longer period of time. And we found that based on our knowledge and background, we really could add a lot of value to their practices. And so that, plus the idea of just general networking, being out there in the community, kind of the Woody Allen idea of just showing up, right. But showing up consistently, being where other mortgage people were not, and always being there, and joining organizations where we could take on leadership and responsibility, join a committee, volunteer on the committee, take action, let people see us in action, and kind of look over and say, gee, that's the kind of guy that I want to handle my mortgage. So that was kind of our new theory, and we took it out as much as we could.
So how many people did you have working in your company when you made that transition? If it was a transition, if you can say, yeah, it was in June of 2000 when we made the switch. I don't know if you remember exactly when that was, but how many people did you have working in your company when you did that switch?
Well, it was about 2000, and we really only had 4 people or so, including Eric and I. So we had 2, maybe 3 staffers, and this is not including, we had 3 or 4 salespeople. We had a telemarketing department of about a dozen. But that all ended within a couple months when we made this decision to transition.
So you got rid of the telemarketers and you got rid of the salespeople too?
The salespeople started to leave because the market changed, and we made a decision not to try to replace them.
Okay, so it was just attrition
That's
at
right.
that point. And then, so was it really then just you doing the sales? Well, I don't know if Eric, if you were doing it too, but was it just basically you 2 guys doing all the sales and marketing?
Our breakdown of tasks and responsibilities has largely been me on the sales and business development side and Eric on the operational side. So it's always been about 2/3, 1/3 in that area. Now it's even more exaggerated. But back then that's what it was. So I was driving business and being out there, and Eric was making sure that the loans closed. I was bringing in the loans, and he was making sure that they closed smooth and on time. And over the years, it's really gotten even more so like that on much bigger scales. Okay,
the reason I asked that question, because we'll get to it as we move along here, is that it's great that you do it, but now how do you get an organization to do it, right? And so, and so we'll get to that, and just remind me if we don't hit that.
Okay.
We'll get back to that. So, so keep going down this route, and one of the reasons I want to flesh it out right now is to beat out the idea, or to beat the drum on the idea that there is great value that comes from doing these things. Because not only by pulling out of the telemarketing business, the direct mail business, did you improve your efficiency, right? And all those costs went away.
Yes.
Right, but you also were able to continue to increase your sales. So let's talk a little bit about how this went along. You had a couple of the big wins you talked about happening just from showing up. So why don't you just go ahead and talk about how things started transforming for you as you went along here?
Sure. One of them, I tie everything back to a couple things, and people always joke about whether it's worth it for me to go to this event or go to that event. But if I do a lot of database tracking, I know where our referral sources and our business comes from, and I can tie the large majority of the business I've done back to 2 things that I did. One was having a bowl of chili by myself at Hard Times Cafe in College Park, and the other one was attending the Washington Post's Personal Financial Planning Conference. And this is my good luck charm. It's now going on its 14th year, but they gave them out that day, and I often carry it with me when I go to these things. But those 2 things, everything in terms of business that I do today, I can tie all it back to being out there. So part of it is just trying new things and being out there in the community. And the big wins we had were I met some financial advisors as I walked around the room and worked it and just introduced myself to a lot of people. I met 1 or 2 that were willing to have a meeting with me. And by eventually doing their mortgages and proving what I can do, they brought me into their companies to do training for a lot of the other advisors that were in the company. And new advisors, particularly really young ones, get a lot of training on financial planning and investing and estate planning, but they don't get much planning on mortgages, which is a big piece of the financial picture. So I did a series of training for those individuals. So to this day, many of the individuals that went through that training are some of my best business partners, and the clients they've referred are great previous customers. Beyond that, the bowl of chili resulted in, I saw an ad for someone who specialized in divorce planning, so financial planning for divorced individuals. I followed up with that individual, had a meeting. We had some good back and forth. He invited me to a networking event for individuals in the divorce community. I gave my elevator speech there, and one individual there came over to me and said, "You would be really great at the Board of Trade." And I joined the Board of Trade in 1999, and I was very, very diligent about going to as much as I could. And for 4 years, I didn't see any business from it. But in 2003, when the refinance boom took off, and I was very active on the membership committee, there were about 80 people on the committee. Committee meetings literally used to end with a line of people in front of me who were interested in refinancing. So, and that organization went to a lot of other places where I'm involved now today.
Because we talked about that, but I think it's actually where you and I met was Board of Trade function, right?
Yes.
So, so now keep going here. So you talked a little bit then about your sales and marketing process, particularly your marketing process back there in the early 90s to late 90s to early 2000s, right? And during this process, your business grew. You started bringing people on board, right? And this is pretty small. If I remember from our notes here, yeah, when you were in that stretch from 2005 to 2010, you had about 8 to 9 people working in the company. What was the breakdown of them between sales and in-office folks?
Eric and I drove the sales of the company for many years. We had, on and off, we had one or two salespeople here and there, but we really drove the business, and we both got involved in organizations where we felt like we can make an impact. We both spent a lot of time out on the street meeting with potential business partners, referral sources. So we really drove the business. We took a model of, instead of having a large sales force that generated the business and were paid commissions, we took the approach that we would generate the business and we would hire individuals to help us close the business. And so we focused our time and energy on primarily the business development activities and staffed out within our company the support to help us do it. But we did not invest a lot at that time in additional salespeople for the firm.
Okay, so during this tough time we went through here, right, from 2007 through 2000 now,
yeah,
right? There were some things that you did during that period of time that really worked out incredibly well for you vis-a-vis your competition. And one of the things you talked about when we were talking on the phone was the idea that size does not equal profit, right?
That's right.
So, and you saw that one of the advantages that you had was staying lean during the time before 2007, I guess, when everybody was really just blowing up their practices, trying to find, selling new products, new services, and you stayed true to your knitting. So why don't you talk a little bit about that, just the entire, just like you shared with me on the phone, but what your thinking was during that period of time when everybody else was doing one thing and you were being contrarian.
We have been contrarian, and Eric and I take that approach to a certain extent, I think, personal investment-wise as well, as that we're not typically following the herd. We're doing the opposite. And we saw at that time tremendous growth in mortgage companies. It was a very low barrier of entry to get into the business. There was a lot of product out there that nowadays is referred back, when you look back, as exotic mortgages, what are called option arms, negatively amortizing loans. And while we were fluent with these products and we knew there was a place for them for certain borrowers, we didn't push them aggressively as many companies did. And that was really what fueled the expansion for a lot of companies. And we didn't feel like that was growth that could be sustainable. So we kind of stayed to our core, and we've always done that kind of slow and steady growth. We haven't expanded into other areas where we're very often asked, why we don't sell homeowners insurance, or why we don't do financial advising, or why we don't have a moving company, or why we're not selling home warranties. That these are all things we could get additional income from. But we feel like we really want to focus on our core strength. We kind of stick with the girl that brought us to the dance to a certain extent, and we feel that there's plenty of market share within our own backyard. We could always be doing better. We don't need to be, people often ask us, why aren't we licensed in other places? Because until we really gain more market share locally, which our feeling for a long time, and until we just stick with our core, it didn't make a lot of sense to go beyond that. So we felt that we would take our time and wait for an opportunity, and we knew that things would turn at some point, and when that happened, there would be a big opportunity for us available.
Okay, so walk us through that period of time, though, so that you're focusing on slow, steady growth, not going into businesses that you weren't comfortable with, or this is a Warren Buffett's thing too, right? He doesn't invest where he doesn't understand the business, right? And so I'm not saying that you didn't understand those other areas, but just that wasn't an area that you really wanted to go into because you felt it wasn't the right fit. So how did that play out then? So as that market turned, what impact did it have on you?
When the market started to turn, a lot of talent became available and a lot of opportunities were out there. We saw a lot of contraction in the business. We saw a lot of mortgage companies go out of business. There was a website for a while. What was it called, Eric? Mortgage Implode. And every day there'd be 3 or 4 mortgage companies on there nationally and locally that had imploded. And we saw all of these companies who we had said, like, I can't believe how are they doing that, or I can't believe they're doing that. That's not going to work long term. We saw them begin to implode, and talent became available. There became more opportunity, and the regulatory environment started to change significantly in response to what happened. So that's when we saw some opportunity present itself. Yeah.
And so take it from there then. So during that period of time, you started looking at ways to grow your business, right? You started, well, not that you weren't growing your business already, but so talk to us how Apex Home Loans went from where it was back then, you and Eric as the partners, to where it is today.
We were constantly being solicited by banks to come aboard as loan officers, by national companies to join them as what are called net branches. So we had a lot of opportunities coming at us, and we looked at each of them carefully, and most of them just didn't make sense. A lot of them were really trying to say how great it was, and many of them, with just in a year or two of saying how great it was, they were gone. So we really wanted to find something that did not sacrifice enterprise value long term. We wanted to retain the long-term growth potential and the name to build value. And we didn't want to roll up into a bank or roll up into a national company and lose that enterprise value. And we connected with a couple guys through our association where we had been involved, the Mortgage Brokerage Association at the time. The environment had changed enough where we felt the model of being a mortgage broker was no longer the way to go. For a long time, it gave us a competitive advantage. We felt that the competitive advantage that it gave us was no longer there, that it had been too much loss of control of the process. We couldn't control the customer experience anymore, and it was time to make a change. And we wanted to become direct lenders and mortgage bankers.
Can you talk about that a little bit, just for the folks in the room and on the video? What does that mean between being a broker and being direct?
Sure. A broker is essentially a middleman. They arrange for financing. So they take the borrower's wishes and qualifications for what they're looking for. They vet those qualifications, and then they try to find the appropriate financing source. And it's an excellent model, and it was for a long time, in that you to a certain extent advocate on behalf of the client to try to find the best deal. You're not in a fiduciary role, but obviously you're trying to find a good deal for the borrower. But you're not the one who is underwriting the file. You don't have the decision-making ability, and you're not the one funding it with your own money. So you have a lack of control in the process. As a direct lender, it was very important to us to have complete control so that we could do everything under our own roof. And that's how we're set up now. We process, we underwrite, we approve the loan, we fund the loan ourselves. We work with a panel of appraisers that we've selected. So we really have a lot of control over the process. And the important part about that is, when you can control the process, you can control the customer experience. And that's a big deal for us.
Oh, yeah, okay, and let's make sure we hit on that too before we get too far. Actually, let's not forget that. Let's talk a little bit about managing the customer experience before we get into more about how you manage your growth during this period of time. But let's talk about managing the customer experience. Just go ahead and riff about that for a little bit. Talk to me about how you do that.
Well, one of the ways we do it is we track it. You can't improve what you don't measure. So we use what's called an NPS, a Net Promoter Score. And what we look at is we provide a survey at the end of every closing, and we ask a lot of questions. But the most important question is, the ultimate question is, on a scale of 1 to 10, how likely are you to refer a friend, family member, or colleague to us? And then we measure the result. 7 and 8s don't count because they're kind of middle of the road. 9s and 10s are promoters. Anything else 1 through 6 is a detractor. We take the percentage of promoters, we subtract the percentage of detractors, and we have what's called a Net Promoter Score. So we measure that. We publicize it. It's on a board in our office. You can see it clear as day. It's in every newsletter internally. People know what it is. So we track that. And we incent internally for good feedback. So on every survey, a customer has the opportunity to answer the question, does anybody at our company deserve special recognition for their efforts? Anybody whose name appears on them, which they often do, they receive a bonus, a testimonial bonus, we call that. So internally, people are incented for having a great customer experience within that. Beyond that, we stay in touch with our clients, and we add value indefinitely. We do something called mortgages under management, very uncommon in our industry. Even though we don't service the loan, once the loan is closed, we transfer the servicing. We monitor the customer's mortgage, the homeowner's mortgage, for the life of their loan. We send them quarterly mailings pointing out when or whether it is or is not a good time to refinance. So the stress of trying to watch rates, determining if they should refinance or if they should address their mortgage, we take that stress away from them by managing their loan.
Is that customized for each customer?
It is.
Wow.
It is. It's customized. It has their specific information, how much they could save or not save on a refinance, and then it also includes information on what are the effects of them paying another $100 or $200 to their mortgage each month, and how might that accelerate the pay down of their loan, and whether or not that makes sense for them to do.
So who cares? So there are. If you go talk to a room full of CEOs, you'll see, or maybe not so much CEOs, but managers maybe, and you go around, you ask questions, so how important is customer experience? Well, how valuable is that to you? And they'll give, they'll talk about it, but they won't actually invest in it. They won't actually take the steps necessary to make sure their customers have a great experience, because maybe who knows the reasons why. Maybe they haven't bought off on the idea that's actually valuable. Why is managing customer experience so valuable for you?
Well, repeat and referral business is our #1 source of business. And we all know, it's no secret, I mean, I repeat a lot of things here that people know that just don't do, is that it's a lot less expensive to keep an existing client than to find a new one. And our clients keep coming back. We know that the majority of loans, mortgages, turn over every 5 to 7 years. We know that somebody who uses us to buy their first home is likely going to have 5 or 6 transactions with us over the life of their loan. So if we do a great job when they buy that first house, they refinance it, they buy another house, they refinance that, they take an equity loan or line to expand that house, maybe they buy a second home, at some point they sell their home and they downsize and buy another home. Not to mention their family, their friends, their colleagues. So there's massive ROI in a great customer experience and staying in touch with your existing base.
And you don't trivialize it, right? So it's not just a slogan, right? You just talked about a number of things that you do and you manage and you incentivize to make sure that actually happens.
Absolutely. We do the 4 pieces of mail a year in terms of managing the mortgage. We do something fun. We send a $1 scratch-off lottery ticket to everybody on their birthday.
I've gotten it.
We spend thousands of dollars a year to do that. It's very systematic. It's labor intensive. There's great return on that. There's nothing better than a few years ago, the first person after all these years, emailing me on a Sunday afternoon saying, "Holy cow, Craig, we just won $500 on our $1 scratch-off ticket." Or the gentleman that I play in my pickup hockey game with yesterday, who said to me, "Thanks so much, Craig. I just won $50 last week on the $1 ticket you sent me." So that really endears people to us. We love doing it. Beyond that, we keep in touch with regular email reminders, holiday, warm holiday greetings, things like that. So we really do stay in touch. In our industry, surveys show that the large majority of people, just 1 year after the transaction, cannot remember the name of their loan officer. So for us, that's incredibly telling. And it's not just previous customers. We do something called adopting mortgages. So if we meet somebody out there whose mortgages we'd into, we offer to take that information and add them into our monitoring, our mortgages under management system, and start to stay in touch and manage their mortgage, even though we didn't do it, because the person that did it is probably either out of the business or is not staying in touch with them.
So let's shift gears and go back to growing the business. So now you have 4 partners in Apex Home Loans, and the company has grown a lot from your 8 to 9 people to today. You're at 61.
Yeah.
Ish.
About that.
Okay.
It changes sometimes.
So that is pretty remarkable growth that you went through, especially during a tough time, right?
Right.
So now it's not just you and Eric and Stuart and Michael out there selling all the loans. You've got a team of people doing this. So, and there was a transition that you guys all had to go through, right? From being, well, for lack of a better term, entrepreneur, going out and selling everything, to actually being leaders, executors of a larger business.
That's right.
Right. So talk to me a little bit about that transition, how that worked out for you, and how you've been managing it.
Well, we went from, Eric and I, from 9 people at the time with a total of 24. We quickly went down to 18 as we were up to about 60, as you said, today. And I think one of the most important things we did at the beginning was we did 2 facilitation sessions. We knew that there'd be a change in culture between their group and our group. We knew that they did things differently than we did, and we brought in professional help. And this really became a theme of things we've been doing for the last 3 years. We brought in professional help. When you process a mortgage, there's a lot of steps. We've got them written on a wall in our office. There's over 200 steps to process the mortgage. It was really important that their group, who did things differently than our group, that we came together and we figured out where the differences were, and we started working as a team. So we did all your team building exercises. We broke into groups. We had little breakout sessions on best practices. Everybody got to get to know each other. We had a message from the ownership, and we agreed to meet again in 6 months to see where we were. And we were later told by the facilitator that very few companies our size, that many people would ever do something like this, and even fewer would actually do the follow-up work that was required, the homework over 6 months, and do another session at 6 months to take stock of where we were. And I think that theme of bringing in outside help, which you know about, we've done over the last 3 years in terms of bringing in help for coaches for the partners, bringing in help for facilitation of meetings, bringing in help on the cultural side, bringing in an outside advisory board. I think that's been a big theme of our growth, knowing that none of the partners had ever run an operation of this size, and that there was going to be a lot of moving parts, and that we sought additional help in making sure we did it right.
Yeah, and your board of advisors, we talk a little bit about that. You just formed that about a year and a half ago or so?
Yes.
Right? And so how often do you meet with this board of advisors?
We meet with them quarterly.
Now, you don't need to reveal anything here, but do you pay them or anything, or is it just
We offered to pay them, and they were all really kind and said no. They did it because they wanted to do it. They did it because they wanted to help us. They did it because a couple of them wanted a little bit of the experience of doing it, and they genuinely wanted to see us succeed. And these people that we've had relationships with in some capacity over time, and one of them was very successful on his own and sold his business, and now he wanted to pay it forward. So we really found a great group of 4 individuals that covered pretty much all areas we needed help in, and they agreed to be on our advisory board, and it's been absolutely tremendous what we've gotten from them. And on that note, I would say that going to these outside groups and peer groups has been a huge theme. Eric and I have been involved in local and national mastermind groups where we've met with other individuals within and outside of our industry to share best practices. And that has probably been the #1 thing that we've done to propel the company forward over time.
Sure. Now let's talk a little bit about the impacts within the organization. It's good. I don't want, as a external advisor to companies, right? I mean, obviously, this is good news for me, right? Saying, hey, this is an opportunity for me to sell my services, right? But the idea is, though, what kind of impact did that actually have inside your company? What are some other concrete things you can point to that happened now that was a result of you? I don't want to say it's a result of you getting external advisors, because external advisors helped you along the path of doing the things that you wanted to get done, right? You knew the direction you wanted to go, and they helped give you some thoughts and ideas about how to actually go down that path. But what are some of those concrete things that you've done now?
I think accountability is a huge piece of it. I mean, we used to joke that if you own your own business, your boss is invisible, and you're essentially accountable to no one. And it's really easy, I think, to own your own business and not accomplish things that you want to accomplish. And I think part of meeting with your partners regularly and part of bringing in outside help or having a coach or whatever those things are is accountability, because you can't hide from it. If you're meeting with a group of people and you have outside help and you set a goal and you put a timeline on it, you're going to meet it. One of the things we do is something called our roadmap, and this kind of plays into the strategic planning we've done. We set objectives, we set goals, we assign a person to it, and we set a deadline. And then beyond that, we put pressure on ourselves. Our goal strategy for the year is written on a huge white wall in our office. You cannot miss it. And we have an annual meeting called the Roadmap, where we basically call everybody into a room and we go through the entire strategy for the year, and we tell them what the objectives are and who's responsible for them, and that's it. And then we have a follow-up meeting. So they know that if something didn't happen, this is the partner that was responsible for it, and this was the deadline it was supposed to happen. And we cover them in all the management meetings, and we bring a book in there, and we sign off on the achievement when it's hit. So I think, again, as a business owner, it's really easy to not set goals for yourself.
Yeah.
And for us, we've put pressure on ourselves and put a system in place to make us accountable to each other.
And I'll tell you, one of the things that's great about what you guys have done so far is that, first of all, you and Eric have been able to work as partners now for a bunch of years, and now you've got 2 other partners on board, right? And if you look back over, and you guys have done this yourselves, you looked at other partnerships that formed and ended not so beautifully, right? You look throughout, anybody in this room who works in the business world knows that, right? And I had lunch with somebody 2 weeks ago, the same thing happened to her. Partnership seemed to make sense, but then it fell apart. And so, but I think that by virtue of the fact that you guys put a lot of effort into trying to make it work the right way, it's probably going to work out well for you in the long run. I'd like to open it up for a little Q&A. Is that okay?
Sure.
Can we take some questions? So let's get some questions from the room. Yeah, Jeff.
So I think it's fascinating that you transitioned from a model where you had sales teams, and then you moved to a model where you two were the sales team, right? From what I do, it's a fascinating transition. You mentioned something that caught my ear, which was, you said we went out and we started meeting with potential business partners, and we started to create relationships. So I'm curious, when you were setting those meetings up, how did you get people to take those meetings? What were you saying to them? What was in it for them that endeared them enough to you to do that?
Well, in order to get the meetings, we really weren't cold calling at all. We were going to events and meeting people personally. We took the mentality that people buy from people they like, and they want to do business with people that they trust and have met face to face. And we knew that we weren't just going to call and get the face-to-face meetings on our own. And so by attending a lot of association events, chamber events, other organizations, any events we could really go to where we knew there'd be other potential business people there, we would meet people at those meetings. We did a lot of follow-up, a lot of note card writing, a lot of adding value, newsletters and whatnot, and asked for the meetings at those points on the one-on-ones. Once we got to know them well, not after the first time we met them at an event, but after we've seen them there 3 or 4 times, I thought there might be an opportunity to move forward.
So moving forward with what, though?
Moving forward with investigating how we might help each other's practices.
Okay. So it occurred over a period of time. It wasn't just like I saw you once, we chatted a little bit, and I said, hey, let's get together.
That's right. We didn't do that. We really did a lot of sales training through some of the associations we were at, and we really learned a lot of important things about not offering our card first and not necessarily asking for the meeting until someone else did, and how to properly follow up and how to go about that. So you didn't see us walking around at a meeting with a stack of business cards just trying to give out 10. We were much concerned about meeting 2 or 3 people that we might develop a connection with and having follow up with them.
Great. Thank you.
No question. Well, I've got a question for you then,
Okay.
and that's specifically about your HR processes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so as you grew, as most companies grow, they go through a process of realizing that their ad hoc ways of managing 8 or 9 employees has to change. How have you guys addressed handling 8 to 9 employees and now handling 60? What was changed in terms of how you bring on people and how you manage those people, so forth?
And that's definitely been a big challenge, and it's an ongoing process. That's something that it's taken us time to really develop the right process and procedures for it. And we've definitely made some mistakes along the way. When we were really busy, there's always that tendency to throw bodies at a problem and not, properly screen, is this the right person for the team? And we were guilty of that, and we're trying to rectify it. And one of the ways that we're doing that now is we've brought in, again, outside help. And we've used a modification. I mean, most people are familiar with a DISC profile, but we've created our own profile. So we've taken our top people in certain positions, and we've put them through a profiling exercise. And from that, we are in the process now of developing a profile of what a great processor looks like at Apex Home Loans, what a great underwriter looks like at Apex Home Loans, taking the people that are really excelled in those positions in our company, figuring out what the characteristics of those individuals are, and we're going to be using that moving forward in our hiring.
To a more formalized hiring process then?
That's right.
And how about, have you done anything in terms of getting better at documenting employee performance and taking action where it might be falling off? Have you done anything like that?
I mean, when you have 9 people, you don't have a lot of these things in place. You just kind of do it ad hoc and when it needs to be done. And that just doesn't fly in a 60-person firm. So yes, I mean, through our CFO, we now have an outsourced HR company that we've brought in, and they've helped us get more regimented in terms of quarterly reviews, the proper forms for that, how to go about giving critical feedback, verbally, written, how to go about if somebody's not going to work out, how to do that, how to put somebody on a performance improvement plan, as some of the tips that you've shared with us. So we've gotten much better at that. There's always going to be room for improvement in that area.
Well, so with a couple of minutes we've got left, why don't you just go ahead and if there's anything else you want to share with the group in terms of your experience, because we didn't even cover about half the things I wanted to cover here, because again, before I let Craig talk here, I'll tell you, I mean, he and his partners have just got a tremendous amount of experience, and they've just, as far as I'm concerned, have done pretty much everything the right way that once someone grows a business. Took the time to invest in the right areas, were methodical about it, realized where they had shortcomings and addressed those shortcomings, and didn't just go fly after every single thing, right? Actually try to build the business the smart way. So, and we've been working together now for about a year, and I'll tell you, I've been incredibly impressed with the professionalism, how these guys approach everything in their business. Has just been, and I've worked with a lot of companies, from really big Fortune 10 companies to a lot smaller, and I have never seen anybody who really takes the importance of planning and running a business the smart way as important as well, with the urgency or the importance as Craig and his partners do. So, so with that, I'll just say that what he's going to say right now, listen hard to it. So
Okay.
go ahead, Craig.
I looked at your question ahead of time, and I wrote down for the last part, you said things you want to leave people with. So I made a quick list that I'll read out, that maybe I'll leave the listeners with on the final start. Okay, so here's what they are. If you have no employees, you have a job, not a business. Figure out your 3 highest dollar-paying activities and delegate or outsource everything else. Design good systems and put great people in place to run them. If a great person becomes available, hire them and figure out where to put them. Hire slow, fire fast, and keep good people even when business is slow. Build a strong culture around teamwork. Publish your goals and be accountable as an owner. Take chances and try new things all the time. Do it professionally. Be anal and protective when it comes to your brand and how it is seen. Bad marketing is more damaging than no marketing. Build an army of followers and stay in touch with them. Take care of your employees, and they will take care of your customer.
All right. Well, Craig, that was awesome. Thanks a lot for your time today.